Anthony on Air podcast. We are back for another Ghislaine Maxwell Day 4 trial recap. We are recapping every single day on the podcast. So make sure you're subscribed, whether you watch on YouTube or Facebook. Subscribe, hit the bell, get the notifications. Or if you're listening to the podcast via Google, Stitcher, Apple Podcast, Spotify, wherever you are consuming our content, we appreciate it. Make sure you're subscribed because we are recapping every single day of the Ghislaine Maxwell trial. Check out our past episodes for days 1 through 3. We hop into day 4 with 3 massages a day. Several witnesses in the witness box during the trial today. We're going to go through all of it for you here on this episode of the podcast. So, of course, make sure you guys like and share on social media. That is always very much appreciated. The day started with some expert testimony from Lisa Rocchio. Just before that was a witness called by the name of Paul Kane. This was a fairly quick testimony here. He's the director of finance from a New York City professional children's school. He was basically there to introduce an application for the 12th grade student, which stated financial responsibilities by Jeffrey Epstein. So this is clearly a move by the prosecution here just to kind of show, coming off of Jane's testimony in the first couple of days and how he, was involved in interlocking and, paid for room and board for some students, most notably Jane, that this was a pattern of sorts, if you will. That gets backed up with Lisa Rocchio. I apologize to her if I'm mispronouncing her name. Her testimony. She's a government expert, a clinical psychologist. She spoke about the grooming process amongst abusers. She talked about how, amongst other things, perpetrators always find a way to access victims that won't be questioned. What was interesting about Lisa's testimony is she was very engaging for the entire time she was on the witness stand. She had direct eye contact with multiple jurors. She made sure to keep explaining to them, maintaining eye contact as she was talking about the grooming process. She broke it down to 5 stages of grooming: selection and identification of victims, stage 1. Stage 2, obtaining access to victims. Stage 3, lies, deception, and manipulation. Stage 4, desensitization to sexual content. And stage 5, maintaining control. When she was explaining number 3, several courtroom reporters noted one of the jurors, a female juror, nodding as she was moving through the process. So I don't know what that means, if there's a pass there with that particular juror, but it seems like she was aware, or at least connecting with these 5 stages of breaking down or targeting a victim. All very interesting. Obviously, we saw this in all the allegations that we've been talking about over the last year and a half as we've been discussing Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell. We talked about this with Jane's testimony, how she was identified out of the crowd and selected. Her father was ill. He had just passed away. Her mother came from a financially strapped family. They got access to her, being a part of the interlocking school, came in, told her all sorts of lies, deception, manipulation about who they knew. We've been talking about this for a couple of days, some of the stories and the fact that, Epstein and Maxwell dropped Donald Trump's name, Bill Clinton's name. They took her to Mike Wallace's party. All these are just moves, deception, manipulation, step 3 here. These are all moves, for, an abuser. Because if you think about the fact that adults feel the need to, impress a 13, 14-year-old, that's not normal behavior. You shouldn't be, you shouldn't have to do that. Normal adults don't feel the need to wow, a 14-year-old girl. So that would definitely be step 3. Desensitization to sexual content. We talked about this even in Jane's testimony from a day or so ago, where she would walk by the pool and there would be several topless women there. Ghislaine Maxwell said something to the effect of, when you have sex with somebody, they're grandfathered in, then you can have sex with them at any time. So there's these little tidbits, little things dropped in. Again, desensitization to sexual content, and of course, maintaining control. After Lisa's testimony, the big witness of the day for sure was Juan Alessi. We talked about Juan Alessi. He was the house attendant, I guess you would say, butler, maid, whatever you want to call it. But he was responsible primarily for Epstein's Palm Beach house. They submitted some blueprints of the house as evidence. Alessi said during his testimony that he was the one who painted the house pink for Epstein. I got to say, it's, I think it was in the Netflix documentary where we got to see the house for the first time. House looked like shit to me. I mean, you got this billionaire person and there was all this sort of just gaudy, cheesy, just really shitty, awful. And I know that's not a big deal in the grand scheme of things. Guy's got no character, but I think it does speak to the character of the person, that there was no class here at all. Obviously the type of person he is now, we know there was really no class, but, and there's no way of that being a telltale sign of what was to come for a lot of these people. But I mean, looking back on it, you can't help but notice some of, pink house, I understand that's a thing down in Florida, Miami. I get it. But, when you looked at some of the way that home was decorated and some of the way this guy, carried himself, it's, again, easy to Monday morning quarterback, but a lot of the signs were there that this was just a shitty person. They discussed the drawing of the first floor of the house, second floor of the house. It was basically a lot of foundational testimony. He told the juror that he'll be 72 years old in a couple of weeks. He's from Ecuador. Referring to Maxwell, Alessi said that she called him John. Epstein called him John, and his name is Juan. He said about Maxwell that she was a pretty girl, tall, brunette. He recalled Maxwell being with Epstein 95% of the time. Alessi described his relationship with Epstein as initially cordial. When Maxine came in, it turned professional. He says Maxine told him that Jeffrey does not like to be looked at in the eyes. Hours were long, between 5 a.m. to 9 and 10 p.m. at night. That is crazy. Absolutely crazy. We talked about this in the past of wondering who was working for this guy, butlers and drivers and airline pilots. And, Juan has spoken out a couple of times before. First time we've seen him on a witness stand. And you kind of get an idea of like, why didn't these people say anything or what was happening? And it was interesting, as we'll talk about in a little bit here, but he actually, they flew him to, I don't want to get too ahead of my notes, but they flew him to New Mexico to go through a training program on how to operate Epstein's house. He was told not to look at Epstein in the eyes. He was told not to speak unless spoken to. He was told that if somebody were to call the house, you take a message. You never tell them what Epstein or Maxwell were doing. And no matter how many times that they would be bullied, because you got to imagine some powerful people are calling these, people up. You can't just be like, oh, I'll take a message. I'm sure some people got pushy and nasty. And we're like, I want to speak to them right now. And they were instructed, under no circumstances do you share what they're doing, what's going on. It reminds me of, what's his name? The guy that was running the pyramid scheme there, Madoff. How departments were kept separate from each other. Nobody knew what the other person was really doing. He was, this is how you control people. You divide them. You keep them separate. You scare them. Anybody who's worked for a living knows 9 to 5 is the gig, and that could be tough enough for a lot of people. 5 a.m. to 9, 10 o'clock at night. Those are some insane hours. Absolutely insane hours. When Alessi first identified Maxwell in the morning, he appeared to struggle for a moment. Maxwell's face was obscured by a face mask, but as their eyes met, she nodded at him. I think she is with the black sweater, he said, correctly identifying Maxwell in the courthouse. Um, um, he spoke about, again, some of the things that he had to do. The cars had to be immaculate. The house had to be run like a five-star hotel. He spoke a little bit here during the morning session. He came back in the afternoon session for some more testimony. He told the court that Epstein and Maxwell would sleep in Epstein's bedroom. Alessi said he would see many, many, many females in Epstein's house. He said, I don't have an exact count on the manys, how many there were, but there were a lot, obviously. Most of them appeared to be in their late 20s. He said around 20, he said. Asked if there were females by the pool, he replied, I saw them hundreds of times by the pool. Asked what percentage of the time they were topless, he said about 75 to 80% of the time. He asked how many times he personally flew on Epstein's plane. Alessi initially responded none. Then he corrected himself, and he said he did take a ride on Epstein's first plane, the Hawker. He didn't hitch a ride on Epstein's other planes, a Boeing and a Gulfstream, as they had previously discussed in court. Alessi complained about the lengthy checklist of tasks they had him perform, which he said was made for 10 men, not 1.5. He called it very degrading. On direct examination, one of the lawyers, Plaglukia, he clarifies the date that he left Epstein's employment, which was in 2002. Comey, who was James Comey's daughter. A lot of people seem to be very upset that James Comey's daughter is involved in this trial. I understand the conspiracy theory connections there. I don't know really what it means. Could be absolutely nothing. Could be, if you have a conspiracy theory on these two, father and daughter, knowing, okay. I don't know there's much here. I want to focus a bit more on the trial, but the girl's a lawyer. I don't know what really to say. But they talked more about his responsibilities and how he was handled. He had a very see nothing, say nothing approach. He was going through this like employment guide that he had gotten from Ghislaine Maxwell. Asked what he understood, what that meant to respect their privacy. He said, quote, I was supposed to be blind, deaf, and to say nothing. Never disclosed Mr. Epstein or Maxwell's whereabouts or activities. He also, one of his responsibilities was to check the fence for holes where Max can get out. Max, as we learned, was Ghislaine Maxwell's Yorkie. In Jane's testimony, she testified that when she met Maxwell, she was walking with a cute little Yorkie. So that was, one of those points where Alessi's testimony backs up Jane's testimony and what she'd been saying. Alessi was talking about two girls who he said appeared to be underage. They asked him, who did you meet first, Jane or Virginia? He responded, Jane. His description of her was beautiful girl, blue eyes, long brunette hair, tall, very pleasant. Alessi testified that he saw Jane with Maxwell and Epstein when she wasn't there with her mother. Alessi says he remembers picking up Jane in the School of the Arts. Flashback to Jane's testimony yesterday. They asked if he remembered a Latin American driver with Mr. Epstein driving them to the airport. She did. Alessi corroborated a lot of Jane's testimony throughout the course of the afternoon. Asked if he ever remembers Maxwell, Epstein, and Jane going to the movies. Alessi replied, yes, they went to the movies. He also testified about seeing Virginia Giuffre at Mar-a-Lago. That's President Donald Trump's club. About Virginia Roberts, he said that she looked young. She had blonde hair. She had long white uniform like a nurse's outfit. Alessi says that Epstein received up to 3 massages a day. Epstein would get his massage in the morning, in the afternoon, and after dinner, sometimes after the movies. 3 times in a day. We talked about this on a previous podcast. Every day. to have some sort of this activity that we all can assume went on in Epstein's home feels kind of crazy, especially for a man of his age. I mean, he wasn't 90, but still. But 3 times a day. Now, I don't know if horrible misconduct happened 3 times a day. I don't know if some of these were just straight up massages or whatever the case may be, but that seems like a lot. Even if they were all just pure legitimate massages, 3 times a day seems like a lot. When you throw in what we know happened with some of these women, that seems like an awful, awful lot. Again, the grades of shittiness, even knowing all that we know about Epstein, just continue to amaze at times as we go through, some of these stories. Like, it really is just unbelievable. I continue to be amazed, even though I know I shouldn't be, at just how shitty this guy really was. Alessi testified that he remembered seeing Jane's name in a directory. Comey has Alessi examine the directory. They take an afternoon recess. When they come back, Comey continues to question. Plaguka, which is Maxwell's lawyer, challenges the admission of an exhibit. Before the trial, Maxwell's defense team challenged the admission of a government exhibit 52, alleging that it was clearly altered. It was a letter. Let me see here. I have this somewhere else. Okay. It was a letter to the Honorable Judge Allison Nathan, United States, for the case. Let me see here. It was from the Maxwell team. I'll surmise it really quickly here. Judge Nathan, there are 2 fundamental flaws with the government's evidentiary proffer regarding Exhibit 52. First, as a matter of fact, Government Exhibit 52 was not something that the cooperating government witness reviewed. You saw during her brief employment with Jeffrey Epstein. Records produced in discovery reflect that witness began working for Epstein in the year is redacted. At that point, the suspect source of Government Exhibit 52, Alfredo Rodriguez, was not employed by Epstein because he had been fired in 2004. According to Mr. Rodriguez, when he left the Epstein home, he took an address book, which he claimed was Epstein's book, and he had it in his possession until 2009, when he tried to sell it to Brad Edwards for $50,000. The book was clearly altered by Mr. Rodriguez. The single page that the government intends to offer has various handwritten notations on the copy. The book as an entire document contains numerous handwritten notations, added tabs, and additional handwritten pages. The government does not explain how one selected page is authentic and does not identify the basis for the witness's testimony in the book. Okay, so basically this directory here, they say that this other employee, I should say, wrote and scribbled on it and whatever he did. The other big shocker for the day here. Alessi describes cleaning up after Epstein's massages. We've heard this before. I mean, if you're just new to the trial here and you're following it all for the first time, some of this is going to be new to you. People have been with us and we were talking about this trial for a while. A year or so ago is when we started. You can go back, by the way, on YouTube or Facebook or the podcast, the audio side, and listen to all our podcasts on this. Just search Anthony on Air, Ghislaine Maxwell, or Epstein. All that'll come up. He remembers finding a large toy. Okay, you know what that is. After cleaning up one of Epstein's massages. Comey asked, what did it look like? He described it as looking like a man's part. A huge one with 2 heads. Unless he says that he put it in Maxwell's bathroom in a basket because that's where it was. A lot of this sort of, discussion of what was found in the room sort of continued. There's no real reason to go into details. It was debaucherous. You guys can imagine, I'm sure. They asked why Alessi left the employment of Epstein. He said, I was sick and I was also very tired of the job. Alessi admits that he did at one point steal money from Epstein's house at a time when his marriage was on the rocks and he was financially struggling. They asked about how much he took. He said it was about $6,300. He also said he paid it back and he never saw Epstein again. Rather than start cross-examination with 13 minutes remaining in the day, court adjourned. So Alessi will be picked up on the stand tomorrow. He also testified to, in addition to finding the, I want to mention this too because I skipped over a bunch of stuff. In addition to finding the toy, he found a lot of massagers, electric massagers and vibrators that were different sizes, which was another point. I bring it up because it was another corroboration for Jane, because she admitted to having those devices used on her as well. So that was another moment where what he was testifying about backs up some of the things that Jane was saying. So that was Alessi's testimony in a nutshell. He also referred to Ghislaine Maxwell as the lady of the house. I'm trying to think if there's anything else that we missed there. I find it interesting, though, too, that this guy was here's what I'm fascinated by. It was my assumption, and perhaps foolishly so, that the people that worked for him were incredibly well compensated for keeping their mouth shut. You'd think if you have a billionaire like this guy, that he would pay extraordinarily well. Like, again, I don't know why I'm drawing parallels to Bernie Madoff here a bunch, but, Bernie Madoff's secretary made a shit ton of money, like way more than any other secretary. Usually secretaries at places that are doing a lot of illegal shit tend to make more money, You kind of have to pay for that discretion. The fact that this guy was having money trouble, I mean, I don't know what kind of lifestyle he had, but, or the fact that he made him work from 5 a.m. till 9, 10 o'clock at night, it feels foolish. It feels a little foolish. Like if I'm doing illegal shit, you think I gotta take care of my people, whatever it is, to make sure that they don't, go running off and, go telling on me. Right? I mean, it seems brazenly stupid. But I don't think it's stupid. I think it speaks to Epstein's attitude of himself, that he can flat out do anything. He was rich, he had connections, and he certainly wasn't going to let any staffer, get in the way of that. Again, this behavior surprises me all across the board. In a lot of different ways, I'm constantly, again, surprised and shocked. Because just of his brazen attitude of himself. I mean, the fact that they have a household manual. I mean, who knows? I guess maybe this is a common thing amongst rich people when you're running 4 houses and you got a ton of employees. Most jobs have employee manuals. I get that, But again, the fact that they had an employee manual kind of seems surprising. Seems a little shocking and surprising. I want to address this too, because I know a lot of people get upset at Alessi. Virginia Roberts Giuffre called him out at one point, basically saying that, he was the answer to, all of their suffering, and he could corroborate all these things, and he really wasn't. You could think what you want about Alessi. People kind of like defend him as this poor, immigrant who just got a job and didn't know any better. And, I can see that side of it. And, some other people are saying, well, he couldn't have possibly been there for all those years and seen all those young girls and not feel like something was wrong and say something. And I could see that side of it too. But I will say, at least the guy showed up in court, and at least he said what he said, and he was honest a little bit. The fact that he was able to corroborate some of the things that Jane says, I think is very powerful, and speaks to the prosecution's case, and will help get a favorable verdict in this case, because when you have accusations and allegations, and they did this to me, and they did this to me, and they did this to me, okay, that's one thing, and it's kind of he said, she said. When you have other people going, well, I did see this person, and I did see these items, and yes, this is kind of the way it was. It kind of fills in that picture a little bit. And again, corroborates and brings some legitimacy to some of the other testimony that they would see. So, and I will say, good move too in the prosecution, having Lisa come in and then testify on how it all works. And then, on top of Jane's testimony yesterday, and then you bring in Juan, and now you're like kind of showing, well, here's this part of it, and here's this side of it. And, this is what his job was to do and all that. And, smart move. I think it was a good day for the prosecution today. I think it was a really, really good day. But 3 massages a day. I mean, mind blowing, completely mind blowing. And the say nothing, see nothing, kind of attitude, respecting their privacy. Like, these people thought they were better than, the people that they had working for them. No doubt about it. They thought they were better. 100%. Thought they could do whatever the hell they wanted as well. Weird that she nodded at him too, right? At the time of the proceedings, that she nodded at him. I don't know if that was a good move for her necessarily. There you have it. That is day 4 of the Ghislaine Maxwell trial. By the way, if you've enjoyed our coverage, don't forget to join our sponsor. Patronize them if you can. Jumpstart Coffee is our proud sponsor. Let me tell you about this coffee company here. 50% of what this company makes, they give to the Navy SEAL Foundation. That's extraordinary. The people that fight for our freedoms every single day, then have to get back into the world and live for the rest of their lives. They need help, especially later on. Navy SEAL Foundation brings them that help. Jumpstart Coffee Company gives 50% of what they make to the Navy SEAL Foundation. That's extraordinary. So if you enjoy this podcast, you enjoy your freedoms, grab a couple of bags of Jumpstart Coffee Company with the link in the description of this episode, whether you're on YouTube or Facebook, Stitcher, Spotify, wherever you're listening. There's a link in the description, or you can click on the banner on the homepage of anthonyonair.com. Use the promo code AOA15 and you'll save 15% off of an order. If your order is more than $50 after you've applied your discount code, Jumpstart Coffee Company is going to pick up the tab on your shipping. And I also want to let you know that they have a save and subscribe feature where you can say, hey, I know I go through 2 bags of these a month, or a bag and a half a month, or whatever it is. And you can have a couple of bags, 3 bags, 4 bags, whatever you guys do, 1 bag a month, delivered to your home each and every single month. So you never have to worry about, oh my God, I'm running out of coffee. I got to go to the store for coffee. By the way, coffee at the store, really shitty compared to what they got over at Jumpstart. This is, if you're drinking Folgers or some of that other shit, you don't even know. You don't even know. There is deliciousness waiting for you. And at the end of the day, it ain't much money compared to what you're paying for the shitty Folgers, and what you're getting with that. So grab some Jumpstart Coffee Company. Link in the description. Promo code AOA15. Save 15% off. And don't forget, we're wrapping up Cyber Week here, where our merchandise at shopanthonyonair.com is also 15% off. Promo code TWSS15. What does that stand for, Ant? That's what she said. That's what she said. TWSS15, seeing 15% off the entire shopanthonyonair.com merch store. We got a lot of great merch up there right now. J Sab's Frankie C, Anthony Silhouette shirt. We brought back just for this week the Cyber Week. That's what she said. Merchandise is back up there. We got mugs and coffee tumblers and all sorts of great items. So grab a couple of things from the shopanthonyonair.com store. They make great gifts. You won't regret it. Lots of people listen, watch the podcast. I'm sure they would love to receive some of that stuff. If you're like, oh, I watch the podcast all the time. My husband doesn't. He doesn't know what to get me. Drop him a line. Let him know. Hey, couple shirts and sweatshirts. Nice little hoodie. Keep me warm during the holidays. Maybe your girlfriend's looking for something for you too. You can grab some merch over at the store. Do it now. Save the 15%. That will end as the week ends. One last note here. Ghislaine's brother spoke after yesterday's proceedings. I was surprised to see this. I hated that the press gave him the opportunity to speak, but I understand. I mean, if the guy's going to talk, it's news. So you got to let him talk. I'm not going to play the clip for you. He spoke for about 90 seconds, and he basically said that it was good to see his sister. He hadn't seen her in about 500 days in person. The marshals let them speak for a brief moment, and that he wasn't going to comment on the trial or have any more comment further to have some respect for the process. Very polished, very calculated. And, you know, obviously the lawyers, Ghislaine's lawyers, you know, they've been coordinating with this guy from the beginning. Him talking about her, you know, her situation in prison and the conditions and all that shit. You know, they've been working together, the brother and the defense team for a while now. The sister was also by his side. They were kind of harassing her on the way into court yesterday morning. So I think this was also a move to kind of keep that, you know, calm, to keep that, you know, pretty much quiet to a minimum. That's it for us. Day 5 recap tomorrow, Friday episode. Frankie C, J Sabs will be back. We'll do the full episode. So for those of you who are new to the show, you know, obviously we've been talking about Ghislaine for a while now, so we're going to cover every single day. But Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, we do a normal show. So we'll do some Ghislaine recap up front, and then we'll talk about the rest of the day's news, goof around, and have a little bit of fun as well. So make sure you stick around for that. Monday, Wednesday, Friday, regular. Tuesday and Thursday, I'll just be here doing a quick recap for you of the day's events so you don't miss out on anything. We tried to call it 2-Minute Tuesday and 3-Minute Thursday, but so far in the first week, both of these quick recaps have been about a half hour. But there's a lot of stuff going on, and I don't want you to miss it. So that's why they've been long. Share this around. Let your friends know. A lot of people have been thanking us for our coverage. I appreciate that. A lot of people say, nobody's covering this. Mainstream media is not talking about it enough. Only talking about the Omicron. Blah, blah. Here we are. Here's all the information. We're covering it. You're upset about it. Do your part. Share it on social media. Okay? Hit that share button right now. Hit the like button on YouTube. We get thousands upon thousands of views. We get a few hundred likes. You got to like the YouTube thing. It's a pain in the ass. I hate it too. It helps the algorithm. What do you want from me? Hit the like button. Make sure you're subscribed to our YouTube channel. Make sure you're following on Facebook if that's where you prefer. And, of course, obviously on all the audio platforms like Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, TuneIn, and all the rest. Appreciate you guys. We'll catch you Friday. I will actually be on the road, but Frankie C and both J Sabs will be with us, so we'll have a nice little show. Day 5 recap and so much more. Catch you on the next one.